Hello, my name is Joe Speicher, and I'm the Acting Head of Sustainability at Autodesk and the Executive Director of the Autodesk Foundation. This is a picture I took of my neighborhood in San Francisco. I woke up with my wife, who was pregnant at the time with twins, to this image on September 9th of last year. I remember it was a Wednesday, a supposedly typical workday, and while I sat at home in front of my computer, I looked out my window in between the Zoom calls. As early morning went on, the sky didn't get any lighter. In fact, as the day progressed, it got darker and darker. Street lamps across the city actually stayed on all day, as if the night had never ended. The sky had turned orange because of the unprecedented wildfires burning across California that were funneling smoke into the Bay Area. The ominous sky was a vivid reminder that our environment is shifting, and doing so rapidly and radically. While California and the American West have always dealt with fires, in fact, the local ecology is well adapted to it, the changes that we are seeing today are directly attributable to climate change. And the negative effects of this changing climate fall disproportionately on the economically vulnerable. The families that can't afford expensive air filtration systems, or those who have jobs that require them to be exposed to such hazardous conditions. And this isn't just happening in California. We are all experiencing this across the globe. Climate change and inequality are having effects across the planet, and I'll argue today that this requires all of us to respond, all of us to do our part, particularly business and government leaders. So let me back up and provide a bit of context. It's clear that the world demands new ways of working, living, designing, and making things. The COVID-19 global pandemic alone has demonstrated that we need to adapt our workplaces, our homes, our communities, to be able to deal with whatever might come. However, there are bigger societal trends that we've got to address. Today, there are over 7.5 billion people living here on Earth. By 2050, there will be 10 billion. That is unprecedented growth, nearly 30% in 30 years. Along with this growing population comes a demand for more energy and more materials. We're anticipating a 100% increase in demand for energy by mid-century. And we've got 400,000 people joining the middle class each and every day. And with that, there are more and more people who desire, deserve, and can afford more things. Things like cell phones and vehicles and food, all of which require resources. These changes mean that over the next 3 decades, we'll need to build almost 1,000 structures per day just to keep up with demand. Additionally, we know that our global climate systems are changing. With more frequent storms, heat waves, sea level rise, global spending for adapting existing infrastructure alone to these changing conditions may reach $450 billion every year for the next decade. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, just released their newest report. In it, I quote, "Human-induced climate change is already affecting many weather and climate extremes in every region across the globe. Evidence of observed changes in extremes, such as heat waves, heavy precipitation, droughts, and tropical cyclones, and in particular their attribution to human influence, has strengthened since the last report," unquote. The need to address climate change couldn't be clearer. Moreover, to meet the demands of a growing population, we are increasingly reliant on automation technology. More demand does not automatically create a workforce with new skills to use the latest technology or guarantee that people have access to these new jobs that are being created, particularly in industries like construction and manufacturing, where there are already fewer skilled workers than are currently needed. And because of COVID-19, we've seen an acceleration of the use of digital tools, which requires significant retraining. The World Economic Forum estimates that nearly 1/3 of the global workforce needs to be reskilled by the end of this decade. This is no longer enough for individuals to go to school, get a degree, and expect to have the right skills to succeed throughout their careers. Now every worker and learner must adopt a mindset of lifelong learning. So at the same time these global and societal challenges are occurring, we are seeing radical advancements in technology. The transformation to a more digitally enabled environment across all industries is creating an explosion of data. Between 2010 and 2020, global data generated went from 2 to 60 zettabytes. 1 zettabyte is a billion terabytes, or enough to store about 1,000 trillion books. Another way to think about this is last year, the number of bytes in the digital universe was 40 times bigger than the number of stars in our observable universe. Data is now everywhere, and there's significant opportunity to those who can harness it, particularly when it comes to issues like tracking and managing carbon emissions, reskilling a workforce, or reducing waste on a construction site. I'll come back to these issues in a bit. So, why am I telling you all this? Because I believe that my company, Autodesk, is ideally suited to help innovators around the globe devise new ways of working, living, designing, and making things. Autodesk is a design and make company. Our solutions span countless industries, from architecture to construction to film, empowering innovators in every corner of the planet to realize their own visions. From skyscrapers to smart cars, bridges to blockbuster movies, Autodesk customers are creating amazing things every day. And we help our customers harness automation so they can use this data to unlock actionable insights across their workflows, processes, supply chains, and industries writ large, creating new paths for efficiency, growth, and most importantly, sustainability. So you might be asking, why are we an important player in helping to address these global challenges that I've just outlined? Because our customers design and make the world we live in, specifically the man-made portions of that world. By way of example, there are 62 million professionals that work in the industries we serve. Together with them, we can help create a sustainable world where net zero carbon is the new normal. We can help create a healthy, resilient world where infrastructure predicts the unpredictable. We can help create an equitable world where technology creates a smarter, not smaller workforce. Autodesk has a unique opportunity to create ripples of positive impact in the world, together with our customers. And so that's what I'd like to talk about today, how our industries, architecture, engineering, construction, design, manufacturing, and all of the sub-industries within, aviation, consumer electronics, water, sanitation, etc., can leverage data, automation, and insights to design and make the future that we need to see. I'll give examples of how we are investing in this opportunity and how our customers are leveraging our tools to deliver this transition to a sustainable, resilient, and equitable future. Let me start by talking about how we are enabling this transition within our industries. Given the scale of the global challenges we currently face, companies are being called upon to do more for the environment, for our customers, and for the communities in which we work. Climate change and inequality are bad for our industries. They're costly, and they result in a loss of productivity and hamper growth. On the flip side, addressing these challenges can be drivers of business value by enabling low or no carbon buildings, energy efficient products, and zero waste construction. That's why we care about these issues. It's good for our business, it's good for our industries, and ultimately it's the right thing to do. And as I said, we at Autodesk have an incredibly wide reach, so we need to ensure that we are doing our part. We've packaged all of our efforts here into an impact strategy, which is driven by our environmental, social, and governance principles, or ESG for short. This impact strategy turns the opportunity of a better future into a reality. This strategy has two aspects: what we want to achieve and how we will achieve it. Firstly, we believe that we can help to drive significant impact by 1, reducing energy and materials in our industries. 2, increasing health and resilience in the projects that our customers are designing and making. And 3, driving towards meaningful work and prosperity for workers in our industries. How will we do this? By 1, improving our own operations. 2, partnering with our customers to drive towards these outcomes. And 3, advancing our industries in that direction. So we're doing a lot as a company around impact. These are some of the highlights that you can see here from our most recent impact report. And it's important to share this because in order to encourage and inspire others to act, we've got to take care of our own house first. To be even more specific, we need to partner with our customers on sustainability, and therefore we have to show them that we know what we're talking about. We set a scientific target for reduction of our own greenhouse gas emissions back in 2008. Now, we are updating that target to net zero emissions. We're doing this by putting in place an internal price on carbon. This includes embedding sustainability into our purchasing practices, conferences, business travel, and our facilities, which includes our cloud and data centers, all of which have been powered by renewable energy since 2016. We also have joined the thousands of companies, 195 nations, and countless city and local governments in our commitment to the principles and spirit of the Paris Climate Agreement. So all of that said, our largest impact opportunity is through our partnership with our customers. As I said before, we have millions of customers using our tools to design and make the world. In turn, those customers have billions of users of products, buildings, roads, you name it. So clearly, this is our biggest impact opportunity in front of us. And we're doing this across the industries that we serve. So let me explain and get more granular. Buildings currently consume around 40% of global energy production. This accounts for roughly 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. And it's estimated that approximately 30% of energy in these buildings is wasted. In response to this, our customers are increasingly working to make net zero energy buildings, reduce embodied carbon, and reduce construction waste. From project planning and construction through use and end of life, worker and user safety are key priorities for us in this sector. And now, cloud-based solutions have the potential to democratize access to opportunities and foster more inclusivity across the industry. That is not even to mention online or in-app learning and credentialing tools that we've put forth. Next, in 2020, in the United States, the industrial sector accounted for 33% of total energy consumption. It's estimated that manufacturing facilities waste nearly 30% of that energy as well. Our solutions enable more sustainable design, manufacture, production, and operations through material efficiency, circularity, energy efficiency, and smart manufacturing. And ultimately, we aim to transform these industries that we serve. Now, this is a bold ambition, but it is one that is rooted in evidence. While it's an overused example, the electric car company Tesla is instructive. Tesla demonstrated the unit economics of electric vehicles could work, and now it's the most valuable automotive company by market cap in the world. From an impact perspective, Tesla has now motivated every other car company of note to go electric at speed. Tesla's biggest legacy will be how it transformed the industry overall towards electrification. Looking back at ourselves, if we at Autodesk can make it just as easy to design and make things sustainably as it has been in the past to design and make unsustainably, we, along with all of our customers, can actually change the world. That is what we mean by advancing our industries. Progress is measured here in years, not quarters, and we look forward to meaningful change by the end of this decade. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our foundation as well. Our charitable capital at Autodesk is at the forefront of this industry transformation. We provide grants and investment capital to companies and organizations attempting to do just that. We've invested in the electrification of the aviation industry, direct carbon capture from the air, and water and sanitation infrastructure in the Global South, just to name a few. all of this is in service of transforming our industries toward impact. So let's get more specific. I want to talk about work and prosperity, which for us at Autodesk is about advancing equity and access to lifelong learning for the skills of the future. We've done significant research in this area. In fact, we just released a report in conjunction with Deloitte that examined the automation risk and workforce readiness across the Asia-Pacific region. This is to help us get smart about the challenges and opportunities in the landscape, and all of this research has been published and is free for all who are interested. Education has always been a key part of our partnerships with customers. We have a large team at Autodesk exclusively focused on helping people gain the skills that they need to be successful in their careers. This team, Autodesk Educational Experiences, helps to prepare 100% of our customers of today and tomorrow for the future of work. We see a future where education moves from episodic to ongoing, from the university to the workplace, and from skills shift from being fixed to being adaptive. Beyond just helping workers keep pace with today, we seek to help them stay ahead of tomorrow. We built a credentialing solution that bridges the gap between education and industry. Autodesk Credentials match the needs of a professional at all levels of their career and help them uncover what's next. It's a self-paced, modular, and customizable solution, and because it's online, it's available from anywhere. But we're not doing this work in a vacuum. Autodesk is not an educational institution, and the public sector and academia have a very large role to play in this transformation. Currently, we are working with Jobs for the Future, a US-based organization that partners with Fortune 500 companies, visionary entrepreneurs, as well as investors to foster innovative solutions to the education and workforce systems that we have today. We're also partnering with the World Economic Forum and their Reskilling Revolution program. This initiative has an ambitious goal to provide 1 billion people with better education, skills, and jobs by 2030. This initiative is just getting started, but it's a large network of leading companies and public sector innovators coordinating their efforts to support the workforce of the 21st century. It's ambitious, but it is equal to the size of the problem. We have got to invest in our labor markets around the globe to manage the transition to a more technologically advanced future. There is so much more work to be done in this area, as the effects of technology and automation are felt globally, but the solutions are dependent on the local economies and local labor market demand. The second impact opportunity area that we focus on is enabling better energy and material choices to reduce carbon emission and waste. Again, collaboration is key in this area, and as a company, we support the use of open data schemas and open source components. In 2019, we worked with the Carbon Leadership Forum in collaboration with Skanska, C-Chains Labs, and nearly 50 other partners to create the Embodied Carbon Construction Calculator, or EC3 as it's known. As I mentioned, the built environment is responsible for around 40% of carbon emissions worldwide. This does not take into account embodied carbon, the emissions that come from raw material extraction, transportation, refining, and manufacture of those materials. The EC3 tool takes validated data and enables users to easily access and view material carbon emission numbers, allowing them to make carbon-smart choices during material specification and procurement. What would have previously taken experts days to assess, calculate, and optimize can now be done in minutes by a general practitioner. Using the EC3 tool, Microsoft was able to reduce the embodied carbon of their 2.5 million square feet of new workspace by as much as 30%. And they did all of this without any significant cost increases. This is an incredibly instructive example of how automation, data, and the digital transformation are enabling smarter, more sustainable choices in the built environment. I'd like to share one last example of our work around energy and materials. Last year, Autodesk Foundation made an investment in Bamcor, a next-generation building technology company. They manufacture bamboo-based structural building components. These components speed construction and shrink a building's carbon footprint. The prefab wall packages that Bamcor builds are not only 2 to 4 times stronger than conventional frame walls, but they sequester 5 to 6 times as much carbon and are up to 60% more thermally efficient. This actually makes them carbon negative. Investments in early stage innovations like this have the potential to lead the AEC industry towards building more high quality residential buildings with less negative impact on both people and planet. This is a fantastic example of the kind of future that we need to build. Lastly, the global pandemic and the catastrophic climatic events over the past year have emphasized the importance of our third focus area, which is about accelerating the design and make of products and places that are safer, healthier, and more resilient. Sanergy is one of those organizations supported by the Autodesk Foundation. Around the world, 2.5 billion people lack access to a sanitation solution that separates them from their waste. There are also nearly 1 million sanitation-related deaths every year, and poor sanitation costs the global economy more than $260 billion annually. Sanergy is dedicated to building and scaling safe sanitation value chains, and they currently work in East Africa. They're providing opportunities for people to invest in sanitation solutions for their friends and neighbors. Community members can purchase toilets, prefabricated, low cost, high quality, and they become operators of those toilets. Sanergy provides the training, marketing support, and access to interest-free loans and ongoing operational support, including waste collection services. In return, these operators earn an income by offering a needed service in the communities in which they live. Autodesk designs software, and our employee expertise has enabled Sanergy to increase the amount of waste removed from these communities and develop new products and service delivery lines. Again, like Tesla, if Sanergy can prove the unit economics of this model at scale, it will demonstrate a replicable, scalable solution can be applied to the megacities across sub-Saharan Africa and the Asian subcontinent writ large. Secondly, retrofitting waterfront infrastructure to accommodate for flooding and sea level rise is an issue that all coastal communities are now dealing with. 1/3 of the Netherlands is actually below sea level, and much of the country is at grave risk for flooding. That's where the 32-kilometer dam called the Afsluitdijk comes in. It's one of the country's key defenses against the sea, but the dike's age, it currently clocks in at 89 years old, and the increasing pressures of climate change means that today it needs to be reinforced. This complex project includes raising and strengthening the dam with 75,000 innovative prefabricated concrete blocks that you see here, reconstructing the lock complex with 2 pumping stations, and creating access for migrating fish, and designing a bicycle path along the dike. As you can imagine, with a project this size, more than 300 people from the architecture, civil engineering, and construction professions had to work together during the design and pre-construction process. Cross-disciplinary and remote collaboration was key to success. Digital construction and prefab helped to create a 56% reduction in carbon emissions compared to other solutions to this problem. When the dam reinforcements are completed next year, it's expected to withstand a once-in-a-10,000-year storm surge. Another water story in this area, this one in Hong Kong, comes from Innovyze, a company that Autodesk recently acquired, in part because of the innovative sustainability work that they've been doing since inception. When the design and engineering company Arcadis was commissioned to assess flood risk from extreme events for the mass transit railway system in Hong Kong, they faced multiple challenges. Hong Kong's unique urban landscape has extensive footbridges, elevated roads, and incredibly steep slopes. Plus, the city's infrastructure is always in flux. For those of you who have been there, it's constantly under construction. So capturing accurate topographic plans or satellite imagery was next to impossible. Inaccurate digital terrain models lead to unrealistic flood predictions. Fortunately, with digital tools from Innovyze, the team was able to replicate the complex urban features to ensure confidence in the flood prediction models they were creating. Again, this is another example of leveraging the power of data to make the appropriate design decisions when dealing with things like climactic changes. One aspect that I have not yet mentioned is the need for coordination and collaboration between the public sector and the private sector, specifically across carbon emission reduction, resilient infrastructure, and upskilling the workforce. Governments, be they the Netherlands, Hong Kong, or here in Korea, are recognizing they need to create the conditions to enable a more sustainable, equitable future. Private sector companies recognize this too, and the need to work with governments to ensure that these priorities are met is essential. I and Autodesk support legislative proposals that help us achieve these goals, such as Korea's new Green Deal. With regards to this New Deal in particular, I appreciate the three distinct yet reinforcing elements: the digital, the green, and the human New Deal. This legislation is a clear and substantial acknowledgement of the direction that society needs to go. We are seeing this across the world with the European Green New Deal and the Biden administration's climate agenda here in the US. We need to digitize, achieve sustainable outcomes, and invest in human capital, and we need to do so at speed. If the private and public sectors work together on training programs to get the right skills to people in need of good jobs, on creating standards and practices around carbon emissions data and management, and supporting the transition to resilient and green infrastructure, we can reach the goals we need to make a more sustainable, more equitable future for all of us. As leaders in business, government, academia, media, and etc., let's work together to create the future we need to see, one where employees are a value center and not a cost center. Net zero carbon is the new normal. Wellness is the new wealth. Infrastructure predicts the unpredictable. How you make something is just as important as what you are making. And where technology creates a smarter, not a smaller workforce. So when I think back to that day, roughly a year ago, when the sun never rose in San Francisco, and my pregnant wife and I walked outside under an orange sky that loomed ominously for the entire day, I now believe that we can change course. Since then, our lives have been completely upended. We gave birth to twin baby girls roughly 6 months ago. And as if this work weren't urgent enough, I now have 2 more wonderful reasons to double down on ensuring that tomorrow is better and brighter than today. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. We need to deliver a sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all of those who come after us. Thank you very much. I look forward to working with all of you to achieve this future.